The workplace is where we spend most of our lives. But what happens when a colleague isn't just annoying, they're dangerous? During the summer before my final year of university, I scored an internship at a corporate office. It was mostly mind-numbing data work, but the pay was good. There were 7 of us interns, crammed into a sea of low-walled cubicles. Most were cool, but one guy, Darren, was off. From day one, he had a fixation on me. He was lanky, pale, with messy hair that always looked damp. His behavior wasn't aggressive, just deeply unsettling. He'd appear silently at the partition, only his head and shoulders visible, leaning over with this stiff, unnatural grin. He'd speak in this deliberately monotone, almost robotic voice, saying bizarre, nonsensical things. "The numbers are sleeping," he'd declare, holding that frozen smile for an awkward eternity. I'd force a laugh, brushing it off as eccentricity. The other interns thought it was a weird bit, a joke between us. But it was a one-sided performance, and I was his captive audience. The visits grew longer, his silent staring more intense. I'd make excuses about deadlines, but he'd just linger. Then, about a month in, I got a call at home from an unknown number. I answered, and after a few seconds of dead air, I heard his voice, that same forced, creepy cadence. "The bridge is out," he stated flatly, then erupted into this shrill, hysterical laughter before the line went dead. My blood turned to ice. I never gave him my number. When I texted back, it failed. The number was a landline. The next morning, I went to our supervisor, Martin, and asked how Darren could have gotten my contact info. Martin looked confused, then concerned. He informed me Darren had been let go the previous Friday for consistent lack of productivity. I told him about the call. Martin assured me he was gone for good. For a week, I felt a semblance of relief. Then, at 5 a.m. on a Friday, I woke to a noise outside. I looked out my bedroom window. Standing in my backyard, halfway across the lawn, was Darren. He was staring directly up at me. Before I could process it, he called my name in that same robotic drawl, dragging out the syllables. Then he threw his head back and unleashed that same unhinged laughter, echoing in the pre-dawn quiet. I yelled I was calling the police, waving my phone. He just kept laughing, turned, and walked into the tree line. The police said there was little they could do since he'd left. He never came back, and I never saw him again. I still don't know how he found my address. Sometimes the most terrifying thing about a person is their complete lack of reason. My first real job was at a grocery store in a sleepy New Hampshire town when I was 17. It was a simple life, stocking shelves, working the register, gossiping with other teen employees during lulls. One of the stock clerks was a guy named Scott, who was in his mid-20s. He was quiet, with an awkward vibe and stringy hair. I didn't think much of him until he started messaging me. At first, it was just questions about my schedule. Then it became personal. He'd ask what I was doing after work, comment on my social media posts late at night, call me cute in a way that made my skin crawl. I was a minor, he was an adult. I tried ignoring him, hoping he'd take the hint. Then one day, a group of us were chatting by the registers about movies. Out of nowhere, Scott looked at me and asked, "You're into those superhero movies, right? The Marvel ones?" I froze. I'd never mentioned that to anyone at work. I'd been binge-watching them in my room all week. How could he possibly know? A cold dread settled in my stomach. Was he watching me somehow? Days later, I was in bed when I heard a faint scritch-scritch at my window, like fingernails on glass. I looked but saw nothing. The combination of that sound and his knowing comment broke my paralysis. The next time he messaged me, I replied firmly, "Please stop contacting me. I'm not interested." His response was immediate and chilling. "You'll need to move soon anyway." That was the proof I needed. I took screenshots, went straight to my manager with my dad, and then to the police. Scott was fired on the spot, and a restraining order was processed. but a piece of paper feels flimsy when you're lying awake at night, listening for noises outside. The fear didn't lift for months. I checked locks obsessively, jumped at unknown calls. It took a long time to feel safe in my own home again. The lesson was brutal. Danger often wears the face of someone you see every day, and it starts with a line you barely notice being crossed. My story takes place in a dreary insurance office in rural Ohio. I was 27, and the job was a soul-crushing but steady paycheck. The office was small, with a handful of employees under flickering lights. One of the new hires was a man named Greg. He was in his 30s, tall, and carried a quiet intensity that felt off. He had a habit of mirroring my movements. If I went to the printer, he'd suddenly need to be there too. I wrote it off as social anxiety. One Friday, a severe storm warning shut down the city. Our manager let everyone leave early, but I volunteered with one other person to finish some urgent filings. That other person was Greg. By 5 p.m., it was just the two of us, the power flickering as the storm raged. When the lights finally died, the emergency exit signs cast an eerie red glow. I suggested we should probably head out. I heard the distinct click of the front door being locked. Greg said, "It's not safe out there yet." My phone had no signal. The landline was dead. When I went to the break room to try a different phone, I turned to find Greg blocking the doorway, a small flashlight held under his chin, distorting his features into a grotesque mask. He gave a thin smile. I nervously laughed it off, but my heart was hammering. I insisted I needed to leave. He simply repeated that we should wait. That's when I decided to try the back door. It was chained shut from the inside with a heavy padlock. Panic shot through me. I ducked into a supply closet, hearing his footsteps approach in the dark hallway. He called my name, his voice faux concerned. "Just making sure you're okay," he cooed. I held my breath, seeing the beam of his flashlight sweep under the door. After what felt like an eternity, he moved on. I waited, then crept out. The front lobby was deserted, and the glass front door was completely shattered, rain whipping through the opening. Greg was gone. I didn't hesitate. I sprinted through the broken door into the torrential downpour and drove home in a blind panic. The next day, the police found his car still in the lot, his personal belongings inside. The security system had been disabled before the storm. Greg vanished completely. Had the storm stopped his plan, or was the shattered door his exit strategy? I'll never know. I quit shortly after. The true horror wasn't the storm outside, but the one he manufactured inside. These stories are stark reminders that threats can emerge from the most mundane environments. If these accounts resonated with you or sent a chill down your spine, please support the channel by hitting the like button. It helps Winds of Thought continue sharing these crucial narratives. Have you ever had a gut feeling about a coworker that turned out to be right? Share your experience below.